What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Nestler. We come to you each and every week to talk to you about the business of moto. Guests in the industry that have done incredible things, guests in the industry that are building incredible things, and sometimes even special guests from outside the industry that can bring you some incredible knowledge to help you build your moto career. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. Welcome to 2022. This is the first episode we're recording in the new year. You've probably heard a couple by now, but we recorded those last year, so Happy New Year. Before we dive into today's guest, be sure to go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing for the most current and up-to-date promotion. They're giving away a lot of cool stuff, sometimes for you, sometimes for a friend. I've seen everything from Maxxis tires to Method wheels to, underwear. Man, it's whatever you're into. RacerX is going to hook you up with it for subscribing. You get the digital edition as well as the print issues. So for however you like to consume your media, there's some really great stories on there from guys like Jason Wygant, Steve Mathis, Davey Coombs, the usual suspects. So be sure to go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing. Hey, we've got a good friend of mine that I've known for a long time now. Started out speaking at some of his events and just hit it off with him. We've kept in touch over the years and have a lot of respect for this guy. He's a repeat guest of ours. We've got Sam Dantzler from Garage Composites on with us. Sam is a power sports industry guru. He speaks at the biggest events around the world. Some of those you may know and recognize the AIM Expo. He hosts his own educational seminars and 20 clubs for his clients. He helps dealerships perform at the highest level, and in order to do that, he has his finger on the pulse of the industry, more so than really anybody else. He's one of the most respected people in the space. He's an avid cyclist. He's an avid motorcyclist. And, man, I'm excited to have him on the show again today and just chat with you guys about where the industry's at, where Sam sees it going. So, Sam, welcome back, man. You're coming to us from Colorado, right?
I am, yeah, Luke. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. I'm sitting here hung up on the fact that I can get some pretty sweet RacerX underwear online, so I'm going to have to hit that website. I don't think we have enough RacerX. You got enough swag around the table that maybe you could disperse some of that as well.
I know. Yeah, it's like a museum in here. It's what happens when RacerX is in the same town. I just go in, and then Davey just loads me up with, like, memorabilia, and then he's like, yeah, just take it to your office and give it back to me at some point. So
at some point, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man, I appreciate you being here. I've always been. We met through a mutual friend, Pokey Weiss, who runs a Harley dealership near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and man, really just hit it off with you and the guys in your company, and really have a lot of respect for what you're doing, and just enjoy your presence on stage is awesome, and then just the information you're giving is so valuable. The show's grown quite a bit since you were on last time. For those that aren't super familiar, just give us a quick backstory on who you are, what your company does. Just elaborate on the intro that I gave you, I guess.
Yeah, no, your intro was great. I was a kid that grew up down the road from every one of you who was never allowed to sit on a motorcycle, and I harbored great resentment towards my family for that. So at age 18, I pulled the trigger on a 1976 Suzuki GS 550. And that was number one out of what is now 101 motorcycles that have been through my garage. And I call them all motorcycles. They're, motorcycle, dirt bike, jet ski. It's all motorcycles in my world, power sports. And I would say the one thing I'd add to your intro is we play in the marine space as well and the bicycle space. So we look at our company, Garage Composites. We're a consulting company. We collect monthly data from our dealers. So we track their financials in a format that allows us to have some head-to-head conversations about it. 20 groups, 20 clubs, you may have heard it called either way, where we get up to 20 non-competing dealers sitting in a room together, sharing financials to figure out what are the best business practices given the climate that we're in right now. All three of those industries are all want-based, emotionally driven industries. So we don't necessarily look at retail as a whole or analyze retail. We do look at it to look at trends coming our way, but we really play in that emotionally driven want-based space to try to get ahead of these trends. And then from those meetings, we run these management academies and in-dealership trainings and public speaking and stuff like that. So it's kind of like you, we get to play in an industry that we absolutely love. So it's great fun. Man,
I'm going to go right to one of the things I've been wanting to ask you. The last time I saw you speak in person, I think was 2018, I think it was the 2018 AIM Expo in Vegas. And I was there.
Yeah.
and sat in and listened to one of your seminars, and one of the big things you talked about was, hey, be ready for it. The electric bicycle and electric motorcycle space is coming, and they're going to be very closely tied together. Here we are a few years later. I run and own a mountain bike race team that competes in a motorcycle and ATV race series. You have Specialized going to motorcycle dealerships and trying to get them to bring that in as a product to sell. You have the Stark, which just launched, which is the new, essentially the new Alta. Whatever, motorcycle or bicycle is a hot topic right now. And you were kind of warning everybody, hey, it's coming, you need to get on board with it a handful of years ago, and I'm sure before that you already were talking about it. Talk to us about what you're seeing with that, with just the e-bike movement.
Yeah, and you're right, it was 2018. I gave a presentation at Interbike in Reno for the bicycle industry, and I walked in the door in Reno to get my credentials and my lanyard and all that good stuff, and I realized I was walking up to a desk that was, the entire event was sponsored by Yamaha. Now, I want you to think about that. Yamaha, the power sports company, is sponsoring the entire event in the bicycle industry.
Yep.
And it was because they had all those new models of e-bikes to launch. And to your point, now you have an e-bike racing team. We're seeing electric bicycles popping up for sale on the showroom floor of marine dealerships, not only power sports. I think the obvious connection was power sports, right? Because a motorcycle, by definition, is an electric. It is an electric bicycle. That is a motorcycle is an electric bicycle, right? So you saw that coming a mile away, and Harley at the time was really taunting their electric motorcycle. You've got Damon Motorcycles out there right now, who's got an amazing electrified sport bike. I'm on the list with Damon. I've got a zero emissions motorcycle in my garage right now. Oh, wow. So it's a sport bike that just. Yeah, the industries are coming together. I think the dealers are less excited about it because the margin on those bikes are less than, certainly relative to what happened with COVID. COVID just took the margins of everything through the roof. So the electric boats, motorcycles, bicycles really took a backseat because inventory is at such a premium right now, and dealers can charge pretty much whatever they want for the product right now. So it's kind of in a lull, but it's definitely here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
One of my best friends, and he's a member on the race team we have, he's the GM of a Specialized and Trek dealer, which is kind of unheard of. And he had told me, I don't remember the exact numbers he had told me, but it was insane. And it was the profit that we make on one e-bicycle sale, we'd have to sell, I don't remember what it was, but it was over like 6 to 7 regular bikes to get the same amount of profit. Are we going to see similar things in the motorcycle space? Not that dealerships are jacking prices up, but just the profit margin is just I don't know. It seems to be more profit on the bicycle side. What about when those things finally come into a power sports dealership?
Yeah, well, just for clarification, what I was just saying is that the margins are not there with the electric bikes compared to the other bikes, but the dollars are so significantly higher that the dealers end up making considerable money on it, but the margin isn't there. That's what I was getting at.
I understand.
But to your point, Luke, they're not going anywhere. I mean, Nautique has a completely electric boat out right now. Now, the charging time, it needs to be at the dock charging most of the day, but you can take it out and rip around on it for a couple hours or an hour, depending on how you like to drive the thing, and come right on back. And so I think we're going to see this more and more. And obviously, as the automotive industry really embraces this, that technology is going to trickle down to our industries. And at this point, it's all about battery life and reliability. You buy a big full-size truck and you're worried about taking it into the woods because of battery life. When they get that component figured out, you trickle that down into a dirt bike that you get stuck out in the desert on, and that's no fun for anybody. So I think as that battery life continues to improve, you're going to see electric bikes really take off, motorcycles, boats, all the above.
Yeah. With everything that's gone on with COVID, I mean, it has been a blessing in disguise for the industry. I mean, I got one of the only TTR 110s that was left in the entire state of West Virginia when I bought it a couple years ago, and still it's hard to find, a pit bike. It's hard to, go into a dealership and see inventory on the floor, because as soon as they get it, it leaves. One of my clients is a Polaris dealer, and he said, we're really trying to market and push that if you want to get a Polaris, you got to pre-order. So, I mean, it seems that, and I know, supply is, with, the port issue and all that stuff, I mean, that's a bit of a challenge, but I mean, do you see this spike, this increase that we've seen from COVID, do you see it going back down drastically? I'm sure it probably will dip a little bit, but do you think we've just elevated our sport and that could be here to stay, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you've got several talking points to unpack in what you just said, but relative to, the inventory is not sitting on floors anymore. We're not talking about flooring costs in our dealers, because this new phrase, direct to retail, right? It's not direct to consumer, it's direct to retail. As soon as it hits the showroom floor, it's out the door to consumer, typically because of pre-sales, et cetera. That will go away. That will come back down as inventory starts to ramp up, and who knows when that's going to happen. But I think what's really important is the way that people like to buy. We should talk a little bit about that, but to directly answer your question, I think I feel there's a lot of data to back up this comment I'm about to make, but a lot of people localized their spend. A lot of people said, why are we taking that trip to Hawaii when we can just buy some ATVs and spend time with the kids in obviously a place we love because we chose to live here? And so I think you're seeing a lot more people spending money in their backyard and reuniting with why they fell in love with, be it boats or power sports or whatever it happens to be in the first place. So I do think we brought a tremendous amount more people in, depending on what reports you're looking at. Over half of the products sold in want-based industries were to new people who've never been in the sport before. That's just an enormous number. And so it's a matter of, can we keep them? Can we keep them engaged? And therein lies the problem. And this whole way that people like to shop with, whether we put that pre-order in now, and apologies on my gravelly voice, Luke, because I think I told you that I was 2 days on my back with COVID this week. So
it's all good.
If I sit here and struggle for breath, that is why. But I am excited to be on this with you. I'm putting in an order now, and this product is coming in 8 months or 12 or whatever the number is, right? And you've got salespeople, for the most part, who are handling that order. Well, salespeople are paid on the now. They want to get paid now. They want to deliver it now. They're a sense of urgency. Most commission pay plans are driven off of 100% when the thing is delivered. And now you've put them in a position of being a babysitter for 8 months, and it's not working. And so one of the newest trends we're looking at is who is responsible for holding that customer's hands over the duration of time it takes until that product comes in, and how do we track that product so we can give honest answers as to where that is in the stage of coming to you, Mr. Dealer. And it goes back to this whole, I started this with, if we have that many more new riders in our sport, how do we keep them? And the way we're absolutely not going to keep them is if they had this horrendous buying experience of nobody staying in touch with them the whole time. So they essentially bought a widget. But long gone seems to be the days of relationship selling. I'm now not very happy with your dealership. I'm not very happy with your team. And now I have a widget and I'm just going to go do my own thing. Yeah. So I think there's this tail out there that COVID has caused that we need to identify and put some behaviors back into the store to allow for these new customers to stay engaged with us and really have fun with the store and the staff as well as just the product itself.
Yeah, it's... do you agree that walking into a bicycle shop, it is a very different vibe than walking into a motorcycle dealership from the standpoint of, I go to the bike shop, I can bro down with some guys and talk to about, hey, the trail you rode on, did you check out the new line or whatever it is? Like they're enthusiasts and they ride. I feel like at least locally there's a dealership close to our office that you walk in and I'm like, man, did you watch Supercross race? The guy doesn't have any idea what the hell Supercross is, but he's selling me a dirt bike, and I'm like, why would I want to buy from him? And I've seen and heard that from multiple people that just sometimes the vibe going into a motorcycle dealership, like I bought a 450, I bought a YZ 450. I'm trying to talk to the guy about it, and where he likes to ride, and his response to me was, man, I'm an avid skier. I was like,
Congratulations.
I don't get that in a bicycle dealership, though. I'm best friends with the guys in my bicycle shop, because I ride with them. Is that common, or am I just in a very weird part of the United States?
I think you got two things in play in there. Number one is geographically, it can be very different. So I will put that caveat out there. But
Sure.
As you and I both love to ride two-wheeled, non-electrified things as well as electrified things, if you look at bicycle riding, road cycling, mountain biking, this gravel craze that's out there right now, all these hybrid bikes that really connect them all. You like in my garage right now, there's a mountain bike, there are two gravel bikes, and there are two road bikes, and I'll do all of them. When you sit there and you talk about, am I a motorcyclist? Am I a dirt biker? As in a motocrosser? Am I a personal watercraft person? Because that's all part of power sports. Am I a Harley rider or am I a motorcycle rider? All those little wrinkles, I think, are very, everybody has their own lane in power sports, and maybe there's some crossover, but I would suggest to you that the dirt bike rider is not also a cruiser motorcycle rider. And so it may be just who you landed on inside the store. Now, sure. Skiing, maybe not. I would have been more grateful if he would have said, well, I'm a road rider or something like that. But we did see in 2020, we crossed over. We used to be motorcycle stores that also sold UTVs. We are now, by market share, as far as what's selling, we are UTV stores that also sell motorcycles. So two-wheeled motorcycles has taken a back seat to four-wheeled off-roading. So the consistency and caliber of both staff and customer coming in the door is really changing.
Yeah. So as far as the buying experience that customers might see, I mean, I think in the automotive space, like, I look at a company like Carvana, and they've completely changed the buying experience. And then I look at a company like Specialized, and when I can actually get something that's in stock, I can buy a $15,000 road bike on Specialized's website, not ever go to the bike shop except to pick that product up. Now, knowing the GM of a bike shop, the biggest one in the area, he's not a huge fan of that because he loves he's really hands-on with the customer. He's best friends with people that come in there. They go there because of him and his staff, and that doesn't sit well with him. Are we going to see more of that? How does that play out as far as in the motorcycle space or bicycle space? Am I going to be able to buy a CR450 or a Harley Davidson on the internet and go pick it up at Steel City, or will that never happen in our space?
I'm not going to say it's never going to happen because it's already happening with certain brands. It really depends on the brand and your state franchise laws. Like Canyon Bicycles is going direct to consumer, right? And are you going to see it in power sports? Well, you are seeing it with certain power sport brands already who aren't following the same rules. And the fact of the matter is brands have figured out that they don't need the dealers. And that's not a blanket statement. That's just a targeted home. Why do we need the dealers? We're doing all this marketing. We're doing all this advertising. We're all over social media. Some of our dealers aren't doing anything, but they're just the pass through. Why don't we go straight to the customer themselves? And so as a dealer, you really need to look at where's my win? Because if you're just the delivery facility for the OEM website, you will not be around for very long. When you sit there and you think about Amazon is the King Kong at doing one thing very well, which is here's a widget, here's some information about it, and we make it as easy as we can to get it to you as fast as we can. No dealer's going to compete with that. And I call that the transaction of it all. Right. So if I go on a Specialized website and I order the new Specialized S-Works Ethos, which is in my garage right now, by the way,
I'm jealous
because I love that bike. Because, I'm 215 pounds, so I need the lightest road bike out there. First of all, I don't want to do that. But could I do that and have it be a transaction? Sure, I could. But who's buying a $12,000, $13,000 bicycle out there? And it's somebody who's obsessed with it, who cares exactly about the drivetrain, exactly what grips are going to go on it, and what kind of power am I going to run off this thing. And that is the person where you can emotionally engage me. And Luke, you and I have talked about this many times. So much of your marketing is driven towards the emotional entanglement with the customer. This is where dealers can win. If you emotionally engage me in your store, in your group rides, and why you exist, and that we're here for you. And if anything goes wrong with your NV wheel set, we're going to get it handled and hooked up. And it is that level of service, not your price tag, not your widget for sale or your cheapest price, because I can beat your price anywhere on the internet. It is you emotionally engaging me and totally taking care of me for my whole riding experience. That's why people go to the dealership. So my long-winded answer is, I think we're going to see more of that, and you're going to see some mom and pop shops fall off who are just the dealership by default because they happen to be on the street corner of that town in America. And it's the dealerships that really embrace this emotional entanglement that are going to win.
Yeah, I love that. Something else that I've personally just been wanting to ask you this. I almost called you a month or so ago to just be like, man, what are your thoughts on this? The used market, and specifically, maybe even the word disruptive is the right word for it, but like the role that Facebook Marketplace has started to play, to where, I mean, I think a lot of inventory on some of these motorcycle dealerships, it's used inventory, but I can list my 2019 YZ450 for $7,000 on Facebook and sell it. Why would I not do that? Is Facebook disrupting any of the used sales for automotive dealerships enough to where it's a discussion in any of your your 20 group meetings that you have?
Yeah, it's a good question about pre-owned and Facebook on two separate talking points. But what we've seen is Facebook Marketplace really took off until it didn't. And we've seen a lull, and some people are coming back to it right now.
That's awesome.
To your point, if you can get $7,000 on that YZ, why wouldn't you put it yourself? Why wouldn't you put it up there yourself? And the answer is because you don't want some yahoos coming to your house, riding your toy and wasting all your time. So if I can get close to that at the dealership level, I'd rather do that. But dealerships for so long have focused on the reactiveness of somebody bringing them a bike for sale or trade-ins. Most of them only focus on buying bikes when it comes across the curb as a trade-in. We have told our dealers in the last year, you need to be literally hunting down pre-owned inventory. And here's some data points for you. Before, in 2019, new power sports inventory was selling at a ratio of 1 to 3. In other words, there were 3 pre-owned sold in any one zip code for 1 new that was sold. Wow. Yet if you looked at a dealer's inventory, it was at best the reverse of that. They were selling 1 pre-owned for every 3 new. Most of them were selling 1 pre-owned for every 4 or 5 new. So between 2020 and 2021, right, because of supply chain and OEM inventory coming to the dealers, or more importantly, not coming to the dealers, you've seen new flatline. So new product has been at best flat year over year until you start adding some other brands, right? When you want to start adding Kimco and KO and Hammerhead as a major brand to your inventory, you can increase your inventory. But if you stick with the same major brands everybody had in 2019, we're flat year over year. But pre-owned's up 64%. 64%. Wow. And that's per zip code, not per dealer, per zip code. So when you sit there and think that ratio went from 3 to 1 pre-owned to new to 5 to 1 pre-owned to new, don't tell me you don't have inventory on your showroom floor. Tell me you're too lazy to go get it. Yeah. Because we need to be in a mindset of hunting down pre-owned inventory. I think as dealers got savvy to that and started bringing that pre-owned in, we started seeing less focus on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, yeah. When you're in your meetings and whatever you're able to talk about, I'm not trying to get you to disclose information that you got to be part of your organization to know, but marketing that works for dealerships. I mean, we have a handful of dealerships that we work with. A lot of our clients now are brands in the moto and cycling space, but they sell their products online because that's just where our industry has gone. So I'm genuinely curious, what have you heard from your dealers is like, it's the marketing that the common point that most of them or all of them say, this works really well for us. Or is it still kind of how it's always been to where they really don't know? They just throw a bunch of shit at the wall and hope something sticks.
You know, I would love to tell you that our dealers are doing such a good job crafting this message and really spending the time putting it out. And I could list off a handful of them that really do a great job, whether it's their own personalized videos out on the water with their son or daughter on the boat, talking about why boating is important to the family, right? That's a great one. We have a gal down in South Florida who does such a good job of really understanding about how important her staff is, and she highlights a member of the staff every single weekend. They're so few and far between, Luke, because right now everyone in our industry has been in this mindset of hold on, because we're selling everything we can get. We're selling it for all of the margin. And so all we have to do is process transactions. And as I alluded to earlier, relationship selling is gone. And it's heartbreaking to a guy that studies so hard in behavioral psychology of selling and relationships, right? Because this switch is going to turn, and there are going to be some dealers left sitting on their hands wondering, how do I get back up to anywhere near the numbers where we were in 2019? Because they've lost the edge of engaging customers as relationships, not transactions.
Yeah. I feel the same way about marketing. I mean, there's some of our clients that we've had to put on pause or that have canceled because they can't get inventory, or their sales are at a great place and they know it's just because of COVID. So they stop doing what needs to be done, which is continuing to get your name out there, continuing to make sure the right people are seeing it. And my fear is that you have some of these folks that are riding this wave, and then the wave's going to eventually, peter out, and they're going to have to try to build back up. Whereas the people that continued to push and had a different objective for their marketing. So even though we're talking about two different things, I feel the same way. I don't feel like it's, you can't really pull back on anything. You maybe have to adjust, but like completely stopping what you once did that worked, I really feel like it's a mistake that a lot of people, not just the power sports industry, just a lot of individuals or industries in general are making.
I agree with you. Let me take you back to two other industries that we can look at who've gone through a major disruption. Now, it wasn't a COVID disruption, but stay with me because you brought up Carvana a little bit ago. If you look at Carvana and some of those the Auto Nations and the Carvanas and those types of everything can be done online scenarios, yet you drive through downtown anywhere, or you drive to the auto mall of anywhere, and all the dealerships are still there. Yeah. They didn't go away because customers could buy online. They found their niche. They found their attachment to that community, and that's why they're still there. So those guys are doing well, even though some dealerships went away. When Amazon, who was a book reseller at one point, came in, and all the Barnes and Nobles of the world were like, what are we going to do? This is horrible. And a lot of them went out of business right away because they tried to compete with selling books. When you start putting the coffee bars in and you start having the little info desk in the center where you can talk to people about books, and it's actually human to human engagement, which is not human to computer engagement. Now we've seen the resurgence of all these little bookshops all over anywhere America, because it's different than the widget for sale online at a price tag. And that's what these dealers need to remember. They're in a position of, I have 15 of these units and the demand is 20. Good for you. And right now, if you're not focused on relationship selling, you wouldn't know it from the bottom lines of these dealerships. Yeah. But you're going to know it when this thing right sizes.
Yeah. No, that's great information, man. Sam, before I forget, Sam, where can people find you? Because there's so much good information. You've got an awesome podcast. I know you have a site with information. Can you talk about that before we get carried away and I forget completely?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. You can find me and my whole team at garagecomposites.com. Garage Composites. And no, we don't do flooring for garages. The composite is the book of data we look at to assess the health of the dealership. The dealer's financials is called the composite. So we are garagecomposites.com. Luke, to your point, you can click on any one of us on the team and email us directly. And you can also listen to every one of our 100 episodes of our podcast that we've had out for the last 2 years now. So thanks for that.
It's awesome. I have listened to a handful of the episodes, and it's really good industry information. All right. So last big question I had for you: what's coming? What's some exciting information, some news, some things you're seeing that you feel is just going to be different? It's going to be a change. It's something that maybe people should know about in the industry of power sports.
In the industry of power sports, you're going to see more people playing in the space for transportation. You are a diehard enthusiast. I am a diehard enthusiast. We buy ridiculous products and we trick them out to the nth degree because that's how we like it. This is why you're starting to see all these small displacement street bikes that have been coming on for the past several years. People are driving monkeys down the street right now. And for those non-enthusiasts, I don't know if you have a non-enthusiast who listen, that's a Honda motorcycle. That's not like a monkey going down the street. But I sit here and I was having a conversation with a guy just the other day about England and how people ride motorcycles in England. And they have CC limitations to where you can't go up to the next level of a CC, a bigger engine, until you're qualified and signed off on this level. And so they're very safety conscious. And I'm not suggesting that should be or is coming to America, but that's because people use motorcycles as transportation over there, which is why there's so many smaller displacement motorcycles overseas than there are in America. We have these, Triumph Rocket is a 2,400 cc bike. And what's the biggest dirt bike that's out there right now?
Dirt bike is 450. I mean, you can still find occasionally a 500, but it's not new. I don't think there's any in production. But biggest dirt bike would be 450. But I think arguably from what I'm hearing, the electric bikes hit harder, and I think they said 800 horsepower on this new Stark or something like that. I forget what it was. Something stupid.
It's incredible. And you know where those are getting sold? In America, because we're ridiculous. And we have the space to be able to play in those toys. So I think what's coming is going to be more volume of smaller displacements. You're going to see a lot of these brands, which I comically call them the land of misfit toys, the island of misfit toys. Yeah. If you guys know that Christmas special. Yeah. With Rudolph and Cornelius and the Bumble and all that kind of stuff. Because there were all these knockoff brands that, back in 2009, there were 180 knockoff brands that we were having to deal with. And so many of them went away, but some of them actually really refined their product and are coming back very strong. And some of those brands I mentioned earlier, the CF Motos of the world and some of those KOs, and there's a really good product that they're producing right now. So I think you're going to see a lot more brands and a lot higher inventory with smaller displacement vehicles that are out there. And you're going to see more bicycle and motorcycle dealerships coming together, because two-wheeled with an engine without, very similar riders. You and I are examples of those too. Yeah, no doubt. Well, all right. So before we go, and Josh, if Sam isn't comfortable telling this story, he's told me a story, I'm going to ask him to tell it again. We're going to edit this out, and this part didn't happen. Sam is an avid cyclist, and Sam knows some guys that are very close to Lance Armstrong. And Sam, last year or year before last, you told me this epic story that I've never forgotten about meeting Papa John at Lance Armstrong's house when you're watching the Tour de France. Can you tell that story, or would you rather that not be public information? Because if so, we'll just edit this part out and it never happened. But if so, it's hilarious. I'm happy to tell you the story. Right, this is the funniest shit. You got to understand the backstory as to how we got to that point. Yeah. I was given a speech. I was given the closing keynote at Centurion Boats in Austin, Texas. Centurion is a sport boat company like a Nautique or a Mastercraft. And I talked about in 2018 this ride I did called the Hot Route in Colorado, which was a 7-day bicycle ride that finished on top of Pikes Peak on the 7th day. And I gave a couple slides, and it was all about goal setting and that kind of a thing in the speech. A guy comes up to me afterwards and he says, "Hey, I really enjoyed your speech. My name is JB." And I looked at him, I'm like, "I know who you are. You're JB Hager. You're the co-host with Lance Armstrong on Lance Armstrong's podcast." He's like, "Yeah, you listen to that?" I said, "I do. I'm a huge fan." So JB's daughter is a sponsored athlete from Centurion Boats. That was the connection of him being there. He and I hit it off. He said, "Can I buy you a beer?" And I said, "Man, I rarely say no to that, but let's go, And then he drove me to the airport. So in an hour and a half drive to the airport, we became fast friends. He started producing our podcast. So he still to date produces every episode of our podcast. Awesome. I didn't know that. He's a great guy. He's a great motorcyclist. He's a former bike rider. Luke, you would fit in very well with JB. He's a great dude. And I think I posted a picture of us riding together. And that's when you sent me that text like, "Why are you riding with JB?" Yeah. But he invited me to come out to, they film another podcast called The Move, which is they analyze stages of different bicycle races, and they say that was the move right there. So every day on every stage race, there's a podcast called The Move, and they started with the Tour de France. And so a couple years ago, JB said, "Come on up to Aspen," which is where Lance lives, and he said, "And you can be part of us filming The Move, and you can watch the tour with us and all this kind of stuff." And so I sent you that picture too. I was sitting in the basement at Lance Armstrong's house. And I took a picture, and it was Lance and George Hincapie and JB and the mayor of Aspen. We were all sitting on couches, and I'm like, "What am I doing here? Like, this is crazy." And sure enough, in walks Papa John from Papa John's Pizza into the basement. I'm like, "How is Papa John here as well?" It was the craziest group of people that I've ever hung out with. And that's kind of the genesis of how that story came to be. That ended up with a night of Lanceritas, as they're called, or margaritas or whatever, and that was good for the memory bank. So that's funny that you brought that up. Man, that story has stood out in my mind. As soon as you told me that, I told my dad and my wife. I don't know. I just, as an avid cyclist, I just couldn't imagine being in Lance Armstrong's basement and being like,
watching this, the biggest race and watching the greatest of all time analyze it, and then all of a sudden this guy comes down and you're like, that guy looks familiar, and sure as shit, it's Papa John. Like, I don't know, something
crazy
about that, man. It's one of the funniest stories I've ever heard. That's awesome.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a good time. Hey, it's good to see you, Luke.
Yeah,
Thanks
man,
for having
same
me
to
on.
you.
I'm glad you're doing well.
Yeah, same to you, man. I hope I get to make it out your way soon, or we're someplace at the same time and we can ride together, man. I love what you're doing and appreciate you being on with us today.
I appreciate that. Back at you anytime you're in Colorado, you hit me up. You got a place, you know that.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impact Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.